Right now, I want to bring up front a couple that you may have seen around a little bit, the Georges, Lovell and Kevin come on up. Well, reason you may have seen them around is Lovell and Kevin have decided to give of themselves and their experiences to just help coach us through relationships. They make themselves available to mentor couples and even premarital counseling as we move forward. And I wanted to bring them up and just hear a little bit about some marriage wisdom from them and just see a little taste of what they can share with us. And I'm just going to start off our loaded questions this evening. How is it that the two of you, well, first of all, how long have you been married?
Well, I can't remember if it's 30 or 31. It'll be 31 this summer. Okay. I'm looking forward to the next one, and so is 31.
Very nice. How is it that you met?
Let me answer. Okay. We met in Bible school. I was from Scottsdale. I was born here, and I went to Northern California, to Santa Cruz, to a Bible school there, Bethany Bible College. And now it's a university, but back then it was a Bible college, so now they've kind of expanded. We actually turned it into a bridal college. But we had every single class together our first semester. We didn't know each other. And so I was only 17, Lovell was 18 at the time, so I was, And so I was lost, though, at 17 at college, so far from home. And I saw this girl in every class with me, so I kind of started sitting with her, and she sat with me. And then I hurt myself, and I cracked my right elbow, couldn't write. So for about 4 months, Lovell had to do all my writing for me. So I spent all my time in the lobby.
You had to.
All my time in the lobby of the girls' dorm. Because we couldn't go beyond the lobby.
Of course. I'm surprised you got to go into the lobby.
We got to go in the lobby.
So what would you say was the attraction? What did you guys notice about one another?
Well, I think after I saw that he was in every class, it's like, well, he's kind of cute. Then he hurt himself, and I thought, I think I could help him out. But then after that initial, just his sensitivity, his compassion, I was just really drawn to those things, and his love for God. Yeah.
We were best friends, and I mean, completely best friends. And people used to say, oh, do you like her? Even though it's college, it was kind of like high school. So people are like, do you like her? And then they'd ask her.
Was that the, do you like her?
Yeah, those kind of questions, yeah.
Like yeah. Okay.
So we would always say, no, we're best friends. We're just best friends. And that lasted for about a year and a half that we were best friends. And then one night, she was in California. I was back in Texas at a Bible college. And I had this just, my eyes were opened. And I had determined overnight that I was going to marry Lovell. And so I had to call her on the telephone and inform her, and it was a long story. It's a long story. I sent her a letter, so let me just get it. I sent her a letter letting her know how I felt for her and how my feelings had changed and how I loved her and all that. And so then I told her, I'll call you on such and such a day, and I called her, and she had never got the letter. So then I had to do all this live on the telephone, and she said that night that she would marry me.
No.
This is our disagreement for the past 33 years.
Well, at some point you said yes,
yes.
So I'm glad that you did. I'm sure your daughters are glad you did. So when was it for you that you just really believed that Kevin was the one?
Well, we had known each other for over a year. And I just felt like he was the one, but it hadn't really got to that point yet. So I just kind of laid it on the table. And I just said, okay, God, if he's the one, you know how I feel, but it's not going to work unless he feels the same way. And so you're going to have to change something or move on his heart. And until then, I'm just going to live my life and follow you the best I can. So I think I knew before he did, but I wasn't going to make myself vulnerable, I guess you might say. I was going to let him do it first.
So what was the epiphany?
You know, I had just really been I'd been in prayer, I'd been in the Word, and I had really been thinking about my future, and it just hit me, you know, I'm going to want to get married, and there's only one person on earth that I would marry, and that's Lovell, because I viewed her not only as my best friend, but I also viewed her as a woman of God and of character, and I respected her in such a way. And then, of course, there's the warm fuzzies, but as a foundation was really the friendship and the respect.
Awesome. So, I'm trying to see if I want to combine a couple here. I guess, what is some advice that you would give to someone who's wanting to get married? What would you say are some ingredients that would bring about a successful marriage?
You know, I look at our marriage, and I look at the successes, and I look at the tremendous hardships that we've been through as a couple. And I think men and women, one thing you have to know, and that's yourself. You have to know the baggage that you're bringing into marriage, because we all take baggage into marriage, whether we want to admit it or not. We got married when I was 19, and at that time, I didn't realize the baggage I had. And I had tremendous baggage. But I literally did not even know it or realize it. And it wasn't until actually Lovell was pregnant with our oldest daughter, and I was reviewing what kind of parent I was going to be. And in flooded all these emotions and these memories of the broken childhood that I had that I literally did not know, and Lovell didn't know. So all of this abuse, all of these things that happened, Lovell had no idea and I had no idea. So none of us are 19 anymore. So I encourage you, by now, if you don't know who you are and the baggage that you have, number one, figure it out. And secondly, find out who you are in Christ, because that's more important than the baggage.
Yeah, I would give that an applause. Is there anything that you can add to that, Lovell?
Just, keep your focus on God. Like you said, we've been through a lot of things. We lived overseas in 2 different countries. One of them was a very difficult place to live for, a couple of years, period. And so that puts a lot of stressors, can put a lot of stressors. And we've been through financial problems, we've been through health issues, we've been through just a lot of stuff. And if you are not committed and you don't have your focus on God, you're not going to make it. Especially in today's society, and divorce is just so easy, and it's easy just to throw in the towel. But you have to be committed, and you have to keep your focus on God, and you have to say, I may not be happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. You may go through some periods where you're not really that happy, but because you're committed, and you know that happiness will come again, you can stick with it. And you really have to follow God and listen to Him, not listen to your feelings.
Just one more question that I have for you guys. How would you, I would look around this room and I say a lot of people are involved in ministry or outreach or volunteerism. One thing that tends to happen, you invest a lot of time in a relationship. When that happens and other things kind of fall on the wayside. I've noticed that the two of you seem to stay engaged in ministry. And what would you say is the secret in continuing to live with the call that Christ has given each of you, but to do that together?
Actually, that's one of the easy questions. We have always felt that we were both called together, and when we raised our children believing that they were a part of our call. So when we went overseas as missionaries, our daughters were not just things that went with us. They weren't just children who went with us. They were called of God to be a missionary's child, and they had their own function. So whatever God calls Lovell's to, or whatever God calls me to, it's still a joint calling. He doesn't call just one person into marriage. He calls both of them. And so when you're looking for a spouse, be sure you find a compatible spouse, because if you have this idea that you're going to go to Cambodia as a missionary, you better make sure that you've chosen wisely, because your spouse may have a different feeling. And so we just have always shared a common calling, and that's that we're both called into ministry, whether it's grand and glorious ministry or whether it's small and little, we're both called.
And I think, committing to prayer before, if a ministry opportunity comes up before you, you need to, of course, talk about it with each other and pray about it together, and really come into agreement before you make a commitment to whatever that ministry is. And if you make a commitment, it's easier really to keep it together with the two of you together. You have an accountability. It can be really enjoyable working in ministry together, and I think that if you allow yourself to be so engrossed in each other and allow your ministry to fall by the wayside, then you just got to keep things in balance. It's all about balance.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom. Obviously, you've been working on it for a few years. You have a lot to share. Do I dare